Hello, my friends. Welcome to Being Humans. We're better together. My name is Ian Christopher Wendt. Our first group of episodes are about the tension between institutions and communities, or more broadly, the conflict between the machine-like modern institutionalized corporate state and an organic society built from the bottom up, from circles of relations to vibrant overlapping communities to accountable institutions up to a healthy civil society. I had originally intended to begin with the building blocks of human consciousness, agency, and meaning, but for some reason that struck me as too esoteric an introduction. So I decided to do a big picture introduction by focusing on the institutions that shape our world and how our communities have been put down, hollowed out, and abandoned by our societies. You have been institutionalized. The old meaning of institutionalized was that someone was sick, physically or more often mentally, and they got closed up in an institution. My grandmother was institutionalized for a time. She had an autoimmune disease called lupus, but the doctors didn't know what it was, so they decided it was in her head. They subjected her to all kinds of therapies that, of course, couldn't help her because they didn't know what was wrong or how to treat lupus. That's a terrible story, but not an uncommon one. I'm happy to say that she was released and she lived a long, happy life. But we have all been institutionalized by state and corporate institutions so pervasive, powerful, and culturally dominant that most of us can't even see it. Children from 6 weeks old sit in daycare all day long, all week long. Young people from 4 or 5 years of age sit in public school for 7 to 10 hours a day. Once you grow up, you get to sit in corporate cubicles or government jobs for local, state, and federal bureaucracies, the military, educational institutions. Let's not forget, we all have to pay our taxes. The octopus of state institutions in the ever-expanding administrative state produces rules, regulations, taxes, fees, data collection, surveillance, and of course, prisons. On top of all of that, corporations are ever more expansive, prevalent, and intrusive in our society. Modern institutions of the state and corporations, as well as the modern ideologies that support and motivate them, have been rampaging through community norms, relationships, and integrated organic society for more than 300 years. They have successfully deconstructed families, marriage, and relational norms. They've used modern ideological frames about oppression and victimhood, patriarchy, racism, sexism, gender and sexual identities, and other modern ideologies to reshape the way we think about the world, to convince us that community and relationships are backward, racist, patriarchal, bigoted, controlling, oppressing, when in fact, relationship and community is what our brains are wired for. The interconnection between human beings is what makes us conscious and brings us together, gives us a sense of meaning and understanding of who we are and why we do what we do. Most contemporary people have been so thoroughly institutionalized that they cannot conceive of proper socialization without institutions. Just tell someone that you're homeschooling your kids and see what happens. I'm a historian by training and by profession. I taught for more than 10 years in colleges and universities in various parts of the United States. As I taught students about modern history, I liked to focus on two broad patterns that shape modernity. The first is the rise and growth of state power. Modern states have developed institutions, bureaucracies, tax collection, all kinds of institutions to regulate cities and states and all of society. These institutions have coupled with the growth of technology to ever expand the power, influence, and control of the modern state. The 20th century may well have seen the climax of state power with the rise of totalitarian communism and fascism. Sometimes I wonder, though, if technology may not give a profound assist to the state in the 21st century, even liberal states, by allowing them to control everything that we say and do and hear and read and communicate. The loss of privacy is a big deal. The other profound process of modernity is the rise and spread of human rights. It began with natural rights during the Enlightenment and revolutionary movements like the American and the French Revolution, Latin American independence movements. The Enlightenment and those early revolutions, unfortunately, did not give full flourishing to human rights. And so over time, we saw the growth of a whole variety of civil rights and human rights movements to expand the vote or suffrage for all men and women, movements to overturn colonization and imperialism to allow for self-rule or sovereignty for people all around the world. And so we've seen the expansion of human rights and a whole host of ideas associated with human rights, most particularly individualism. For a long time, I thought that those two processes, the growth and expansion of state power and institutions, and the growth of human rights and individualism, were actually opposing forces. I've come to the conclusion that the two processes of the expansion of state power and the expansion of human rights have actually been captured by modern institutions to continually support the growth of institutional power by states and corporations. States and corporations have succeeded in taking individualism and transforming it into the atomization of human beings, the division of relationships, the fragmentation of communities, and the vilification of communal ideas and connections and identities in order to strengthen institutions, to commercialize all interconnections, and make us all subjects and clients of massive institutions, from states and governments to schools to corporate brands to consumerism and corporate culture. Consider these influences in your own life. Did you go to daycare? From what age? Do you even know when you started going to daycare? How many hours a week did you sit in a crib or in a small room with 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 other children your exact same age, none of whom were in your family, where you were cared for by well-meaning women who did not love you the way your family would? How many years did you spend in school under the direction of teachers? They did not care for you. Their job was to instruct you, to control you, to keep you in line. And if this wasn't obvious to you, what happened to the kids who wouldn't sit in their seat, who wouldn't color between the lines? You know what happened. How far back were you socialized by bureaucratic rules? I think for many of us, the first time we became truly aware of this was in middle school, where the vice principal was the enforcer. Or maybe you had a gym teacher or a Spanish teacher or someone strict who laid down the law, who made it very clear to you who was in charge and that you were not in a democratic space, but you were in an institutional space, a command space, an authoritarian space. Maybe you're old enough to be employed full-time. How does your corporation discipline you? How do they control you? Are you an at-will employee, someone who can get fired for any reason at any time? When was the last round of layoffs at your corporation? Have you accepted the idea that corporations constantly inform you that you're defined by what you buy, by what you consume, by what you wear, by what you drive, by what phone you use, by what apps you use, by what you listen to? None of this is real. It's part of the reason why you may be feeling like life doesn't mean very much. Corporations are not communities. Finally, have you noticed that the state is constantly making more rules. Do you have any idea how many rules there are about how high a light switch has to be on a wall, or whether you can use a certain kind of light bulb, or drive a certain kind of car? There are more rules than we can comprehend. Health and safety rules rob us of our freedom while protecting us. Safetyism is such a powerful ideology of the state. Each time we get to feeling a little bit too free, a little bit too raucous, someone signs an executive order, or someone finds a new disease or epidemic, someone finds a new conflict that's a threat to all of us, and the state latches down once again. It's happened over and over again in my short lifetime. Most of us swim in these institutions and don't even notice the ocean. We even line up to join them. How have you been institutionalized in schools, governments, or corporations? I know I've experienced aspects of institutionalization many times. Have you noticed how in order to rise in many corporations and government jobs, you need to move every 3 to 5 years? That can be exciting, especially to be promoted, empowered, given raises. But what about your relationships with friends and family you leave behind? What about the kids in the family? What do they experience and learn as their family and friend relationships are disrupted? One of the things I struggled most with over the years in several institutions was the lack of honesty from and accountability for leaders. I'll just give one example. Corporate leaders always have motivating messages to support the mission, to work extra hard during this crucial sprint to deliver a big project for the client, to change your organization's structure and change how you work. One of the most appealing and effective VPs I worked under was so good at this. She entered our company and expressed seemingly honest understanding and encouragement for our hard work, expertise, and the challenges we were facing. She was on our side. We all saw the challenges we faced as an organization, but she told us we could work even harder to meet them. We had done so, and we continued to do so consistently. And the message was always motivating until the day we were called into a meeting with her where she discussed how 1/3 of us needed to leave the organization, and those of us who stayed would need to redouble our commitment to increased efficiency, to work harder, and to embrace AI and technological innovation. I'm not making this up, but then the curtain slipped, and she admitted that at her last corporation, she had been tasked with laying off her entire division. 100% of her employees gone. And I realized that this had been her job all along. How do leaders who dismantle their institutions and lay off their employees find promotion after promotion? What happened to all of your former colleagues at the empty cubicles? But don't worry, they'll fill up the cubicles again. If there's one thing that institutions of the state and corporations have consistently taught us, it's that people are interchangeable and replaceable. There are always more workers, more students, more soldiers, more consumers. But should we accept that? Perhaps you have tens of thousands of dollars of debt from universities, or you shouted in the stands at pep rallies and football games. Maybe it was all worth it, or maybe they didn't really provide you with the real-world skills you actually needed, but they still demanded your money for tuition, room and board, and books. Do you dedicate most of the useful energy in your mind and body 5 or 6 days every week? For what exactly in return? A paycheck, certainly. But does the organization give you the loyalty and commitment in return that they demand from you? Most people seem so convinced that success is derived from diving into big institutions, accumulating degrees and debt, working harder and harder, impressing the managers, climbing the ladder, supporting the mission, delivering for the clients and customers. Sometimes we need to wonder if most people are right or wrong. Institutions are not going away. They are powerful and often effective. We often feel that we need them, but we also need to recognize that our real relationships with family and friends are the ones that last. I left friends and family over and over to go from university to corporation in pursuit of degrees and jobs and in service of big institutions. I spent years overseas in exciting opportunities and service, but I also repeatedly left relationships behind. Let's see things the way they really are, and let's prioritize the people and communities who matter most. I can't do more than just introduce some of these things right now, but I hope that we'll have opportunities to expand on them in a whole variety of contexts as we move forward. The machines of state and corporate institutions then move on to attack relationships and communities. They also wrap themselves in a false liberalism through individualism. This is accepted by virtually all modern liberal perspectives, from modern conservative individualist capitalism to leftist identity, to experiential individualism about my experienced truth. All of these forms of individualism actually serve institutions like the state and corporations. When people argue politically about these things, they often can't even comprehend that lost, meaningful middle ground of relationships and communities. Instead, they argue about which institutions are best, which modern ideologies are best, when what we have lost is the core of who we are, our relationships and our communities. The result is the fragmentation of all relationships, the breaking of all communal bonds, except for the modern institutional discipline. The result is the loss of all meaning, except for the leftist state ideology and corporate PR discipline. We have tolerance for every kind of behavior except for communal, traditional, community ideas and identification. Now we live as atomized individuals with 1 million intersectional identities and 1 million experiential truths. Each of us is left weak, lonely, isolated, meaningless, rootless, selfish, nihilistic. And we are all increasingly subject to surveillance, discipline, and control of the state. If you want to live a rich, meaningful life, embrace relationships, develop a multi-dimensional hierarchy of values built on a wisdom tradition, join communities that resonate around humane behaviors, that play together, that work together, that serve together, and that perpetuate value systems intergenerationally from young to old. Free yourself from the chains of modern institutions. If you find this meaningful, act now. Connect in real life with your people, the people you love and care about, who love and care about you. Please also like, share, subscribe, connect with us, join our community. Amen, amen. This is the way of being humans together.